And we're on Facebook. I'm just waiting for YouTube. And here we go. Okay, so now we'll wait for, we'll allow people to come in to the chat. So I'm incognito, people, because I'm going to have to leave for a little bit. And we had a really exciting day today. At first, we were told we'd be able to sell our umbrellas everywhere. Then we were told yesterday we can't sell them anywhere. So they're trying to give us a runaround, but we're trying to make sure that either ways, we're going to get to be able to, give out the umbrellas for donations. And then today, Liz and I were on a phone call, and we found out that even we were going to invite everybody for an evening with us, but we were limited to 200. And then we were told that it's only allowed till 7 p.m. on Saturday evening. And we wanted something that would last at least till 11 or midnight. So we rented a hall that fits 325. And we have the inside and the outside patio. And we're going to be able to have some music, some entertainment if we want, and be able to show the live streams of the people we'll be interviewing in the evening at the hotel in the Sky Lounge for everybody to see from that venue. So it's about a 30-minute walk from Parliament, unfortunately, but only an 8-minute car ride. And we'll be able to grab taxis there or even take our vehicles. But it's at All Saints, at the All Saints building, where this is going to be. And then we'll be there all evening and getting registrations. And we're still figuring out what we're going to do there in the evening. And hopefully there's Pierrette. So every time a door closes, another one opens. So yesterday we were hoping to be able to get Nikki Sanchez. She developed COVID today.
Oh, that's who's sick. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's who's sick. So anyways, they're seeing about a replacement, which I think everybody will be even very thrilled about. We're not going to mention names today until we get a confirmation, but that person can also provide entertainment, music entertainment, and people just love her to death. So, like I said, when one door closes, another one opens. And everything that they try to close for us makes us even bigger and stronger, which is kind of ironic, And this is a converted church where we'll be in, and it's called All Saints, and they've been having wedding ceremonies and all kinds of things there. So it's kind of ironic that all of this happens, is happening for a reason. So how can I say? We're very optimistic about the whole turn of events. Yes, Rhonda?
I just want to back you up a bit because we're live now, right, on Facebook and YouTube. I just want to back you up a bit to say, hi, everybody. This is our normal CPU membership only meeting that we're doing live tonight. And we're doing it live tonight to give you guys a sense of what we talk about, what's discussed, and to talk about the event in Ottawa and across Canada on July 30th, and then solely in Ottawa on July 31st and August 1st. So this isn't a kind of a regular live that we normally do. This is normally this is not recorded, it's not broadcast, it's for members only. So I just wanted to preface that, because in case some of the members are kind of going, what's going on? So.
Yeah, well, that's why they need to read their emails. So when we sent you the email, that was posted in there, just to give you a heads up. And we want to make sure that we don't name names. So this is why there's only these people that you will see, and myself talking once in a while. So it'll be, how can I say, a little bit more interesting for everybody watching online. I'm just going to go back here into the chat and see what's going on here. Hello. Okay. So now I just want to make sure that people can see us. So go ahead, Rhonda, in regards to, I think what we need to do is if you can do a screen share and go to our website and read the new information that I posted on there, because most people won't know. And many people are writing to us to say they don't really understand what self-determination is and what we have to do there and why. So now you'll get a blurb that Rhonda will read to you and share through screen share. And you'll be able to, later on, I'll upload all the files to the links for how we're supposed to be behaving in Ottawa, and vice versa for the government. The government will know our rights, and we will see what they expect of us and what they can force us to do or not force us to do, or follow, you know, the guidelines. And we all have to be respectful of the laws and everything else, and only enforce the laws that we're protected under. So this is what we're going to be doing. So go ahead, Rhonda.
Okay, can you see the screen now, everybody? Liz?
Yep.
Yep, okay. So this is our website, and I'm just gonna go to our home screen because I've been on the other pages here. So what we changed today, I'm just gonna, there. So what we changed today was we added this whole blurb in underneath the initial, here's what's happening in Ottawa. So the best way for Canadians and Indigenous people to protect our country and our rights is to initiate our political and civil rights to collective self-determination. So it's our individual, I'm just going to paraphrase this and kind of explain everything as we go along. So it is our individual political and civil rights that we give to collective rights. So they go hand in hand. And the Canadian and Indigenous peoples of Canada had a right to national collective self-determination and decolonization from 1931. We also have it through the UN in 1960, that was kind of became ratified in the 70s, 1982, and again in 1982, when our governments had the duty and chance to initiate it for the people via our Constitution. However, this issue was never spoken about or brought up in either provincial or federal legislatures by our governments. If you go back to our to the 80s, the late 70s, early 80s, when they were doing a bunch of committees and a bunch of feedback from people, you'll see that people and groups across Canada brought this up over and over again, and the governments of the day ignored it. So instead, our collective political and civil rights as the combined peoples being the lawful legal head of state of Canada in our Constitution, with final decision-making authority, which is veto power, above the Queen and our governments, was buried and hidden from all of us for decades. Therefore, deliberately creating a stolen right from all Canadian and Indigenous peoples, since Canada and the UK has been bound to our rights since after World War II and signed on to these rights in 1976. So 1976 is the UN Declaration. So basically—
Rhonda, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, we've had, since 1976, we have had this right, both sides, both in Canada and in international law. So all we're asking for is for this correction to be made, that we, the Canadian People's Union, undertook the actions to remedy this situation. And how we're doing that is through one of these actions of how we're doing it was initiated on March 3rd of 2022 in a formal letter to the UK demanding a constitutional correction. And in the resource tab, you'll see the constitutional correction, right? The request for the request to UK for constitutional correction. The constitutional correction can remedy reconciliation and finalize decolonization by legally including the Indigenous peoples of Canada as equal partners, shareholders, co-owners, and final decision makers with the Canadians on each side of the Two-Row Wampum Treaty for our country and in our Constitution. So what we really do is we take the colonial part out of our system of governance and make it a governance by the people. It would only take a motion filed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Commonwealth to the UK Parliament for vote to issue a formal declaration and be ratified by royal assent. If not done, then the UK is liable, just as Canada, to be in breach of many international laws, including the Statute of Rome. This is why we do not have to have a crown as our head of state in the Constitution. Having a crown as a head of state was put there so that the people really didn't have a say, because at the time when the crown was put there, the people were not ready. And we've been told this several times since 1931, that the people are not ready. Well, we're ready, and we're demonstrating this now. That's what this is all about, is demonstrating that we are ready. And we don't leave the Commonwealth because we do not have a crown. They're two separate things. Our Constitution does not need to have a crown. The people are the crown. The other action was the initiation of drafting a formal legally binding contract named the Indigenous and Civil Unified Sovereign Enactment Convention of Consent, a living document created in 2014 to be signed by all Canadian and Indigenous peoples who want our combined rights lawfully, legally recognized in our Constitution as being the final decision makers and having full authority over our governance. This is key, because this means that none of our rights can ever be taken away without our express consent. We would have to have a referendum for each one of our rights to be taken away. And who's going to allow their rights to be taken? No government should ever have full authority over the people they work for. And indeed, they do work for us. However, their attitude is very different than that. That authority belongs to both peoples of this country. And with the help of all Canadian and Indigenous peoples igniting the conversation and enforcing its legislation, this is the step to success. We believe we can achieve this on Parliament Hill, July 30th, 2022. And what we're doing on Parliament Hill is we are igniting the conversation and starting to enforce legislation, or starting to tell them we're ready for this legislation to be enforced, so that our actions in the UK and here in Canada can be successful. And that's what this is about, is coming together in celebration that we are finally joining. We are doing finally for ourselves what our leaders will not do for us. And the following graphic is just you can download it. It's just an invitation for anybody to the weekend. And then of course your convention of consent with the video. This video is actually a tutorial that walks you through every section of the convention of consent if you're having problems signing. And then you can also, on the resource hub, the convention of consent right here. There's a lot of information. If you're not sure what it really means, it's all there. And then so on and so forth. We get a lot of questions around this united collective rights to self-determination and decolonization as equal partners, shareholders, co-owners, and final decision makers for Canada to be corrected and legally recognized in our Constitution. This is important because under the Two-Row Wampum, which were the first treaties that were ever agreed to, we agreed to be equal, fair, have peace, and grow together. That's just some of the things that we agreed to. It wasn't this usurpation. It wasn't us overriding other people. It was us working together. And our governments have never allowed that to happen. They agreed to it initially, and as it just was never upheld. So it's time to move forward for not just for ourselves, but for our children and future generations. And I'm just going to stop the screen share now. There. So do you ladies have anything else to add to that? That's basically Yeah, go ahead, Liz.
The question that I get repeatedly is, what exactly is self-determination? What does that mean?
Self-determination is the right to hold your government accountable 365 days a year. That's self-determination. So we have a right to self-determine how we are governed. That's the full phrase of that, to self-determine our governance. And that means that we should be able to, if there's corruption, if there are people doing, our elected officials doing what they have promised they wouldn't do or not upholding their promises, we should be able to hold them accountable. Right now, we can't. The only way we can hold them accountable is every election. And basically, that's not really holding them accountable either, because it doesn't, so they don't get elected again. But if they're in 2 terms, they've got their golden handshake anyway. They're not really too worried. They're just, off they go. And they don't pay for and pay is a harsh word. I don't know if that's the correct word to use, but there's no consequences for lies or for corruption or anything, none. We've seen that, if nothing else, since 2015. People have seen the constant corruption over and over again. Oh, thank you, Nicole. Is this on the website?
Yeah, no, it's going to be on the website a little bit later. Listen, this is the first time I've noticed that, okay, they're really coming after us. We're going to need everybody to help us spread the word, because I have never seen this in the history that I've been on Facebook and having live streams, that we only have 8 viewers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're being shadow banned pretty harshly.
Massively, very, very, very harshly. So I think we're going to need to send the human rights complaint to Facebook by our lawyer, because this is ridiculous. Last night we had 22. So they really do not want to get the word out. They do not want the nations to get this information, and we'll be damned if we're going to let them get away with this.
Yeah, it's really key, right? Like what we found in all our research is this is the first key for us having real independence and real freedom.
Right. So Rhonda, can you read these as well, please? Or
I can, but I can't move my screen.
I will.
Okay. So what is self-determination for colonies? In international law, the right of self-determination that became recognized in the 1960s was interpreted as the right of all colonial territories to become independent or to adopt any other status they freely chose. So that is to call yourself a nation, a republic, or whatever. That's what that was. And what is self-determination and decolonization? What gave these people self-determination rights was the fact that colonial states failed to achieve minimally just rule. So that's in section 2, the democratic view. Decolonization was morally required because subject peoples lacked democratic representation. So they have tricked us for many, many decades now through our representative governance, saying that we have democracy. We don't. We only have democracy if we have a voice 365 days a year. Having a voice to vote in who is going to speak for you for the next 4 years is not democracy. It's a type of democracy, but it's not democracy for the people. So what are the 4 types of decolonization? There are broadly 4 types of decolonization. The first type is self-government for white settler colonies, as it happened in Canada and Australia. 2, formal end to empire followed by independent rule, as in India. And 3, formal empire replaced by informal empire or neo-colonialism, as in Latin America. And then 4, mere change of imperial masters. And Canada has actually been a combination of 1 and 4. So what is the self-determination? Self-determination is believing you can control your own destiny. Self-determination is a combination of attitudes and abilities that lead people to set goals for themselves and to take the initiative to reach these goals. It is self-determination that gives us responsibility and gives us the responsibility for our own democracy. We're responsible for our own democracy, not our government, us. What is self-determination in history? During World War I, US President Woodrow Wilson promoted the concept of self-determination, meaning that a nation, a group of people with similar political ambitions, can seek to create its own independent government state or states. And that's exactly what many countries have done. What is self-determination for a country? Self-determination denotes the legal right of people to decide their own destiny in the international order. Self-determination is a core principle of international law arising from customary international law, but also recognized as a general principle of law and enshrined in a number of international treaties. And why is self-determination important for countries? In particular, the principle allows a people to choose its own political status and determine its own form of economic, cultural, and social development. Exercise of this right can result in a variety of different outcomes, ranging from political independence through to full integration within a state. Integration within a state. What are the characteristics of decolonization? Decolonization is about cultural, psychological, and economic freedom for Indigenous people, while the goal of achieving Indigenous sovereignty, or with the goal of achieving Indigenous sovereignty, the right and ability of Indigenous people to practice self-determination over their land, cultures, and political and economic systems. And we also, Canadians also have that right as well. What is an example of self-determination? Although people often say it, self-determination is really not about control. It is about taking action in your life to get the things you want and need. For example, if someone says, if you do this, I'll give you a soda, even if you decide you do it, you are not the person who took the action in the first place. So that last one is a little confusing.
Yeah, well, that's because it shows you that if the government does it, like, okay, our right was stolen, okay? There's no ifs and buts about that. 1931, 1982. Now, Trudeau declared that we were self-determinating to the UK, which was finalizing the tie, because self-governance does not give you self-determination.
No, and we're far from a self-determining people, because we cannot, we have no say. The only say we have is one day every election. That's it. That's the only say we have.
So if somebody, so this is where the soda comes in, that comes from the government and not yourself wanting your own right.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't you taking the action in the first place.
Right. So okay. in this case, by us becoming the collective head of state, and when I say us, I mean all of Canada becoming the collective head of state, then we have the right to hold our governments accountable.
Exactly.
And that is something that they do not want, which is why we're being very badly shadow banned, why we are being very badly, because they know that they know that this is our right, and they've kept it from us for centuries, actually.
Yes, this is exactly what they've been trying to hide from the Indigenous peoples and Canadians all together, keeping the French and the English fighting, keeping the English and the French fighting with the nations and vice versa. And this is what we need to end, because in a country such as Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Africa, some parts of Africa, the reason when you have more of a population than Indigenous peoples, the Indigenous peoples cannot become, because it's all parts and parcels and other things negotiated in between. If you look at Canada, it would be a puzzle, okay, between Indigenous peoples and Canadians.
Well, yeah,
So
Indigenous, according to the treaties, Indigenous people own about 50% of Canadian land, according to the treaties.
Yeah. So when we look at that, the international says, well, there's no, we cannot create chaos, therefore they cannot become their own country within a country. Same as Quebec could not separate, Alberta could not separate. The Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples, even Indigenous peoples, don't all live on reserves. They have rights across this country. We have rights across this country. The nations have rights across this country. And therefore, it would be up to the people to decide if a province can separate or not. And on the other side, then the Indigenous nations would have a right to also have their own referendum on that. If they say no, it's a no-go. If we say no and the Indigenous nations say yes, then it's still a no-go. So in order to be able to create the perfect scenario for reconciliation and decolonization and everything else, what they did is they forced us to do what they deem as impossible. And that is to unite the nations and Canadians as equal partners, or what they were hoping to is for the nations to accept peanuts and take it so that they could be in partially in our constitution and recognized. But the real scenario here ideally is an equal partnership in our governance across Canada, within their governance and us within our governance, but then we come together on what binds us in government.
Yeah, and Trudeau Senior tried to pull the wool over the Indigenous people's eyes with the white paper.
Yeah. When you look at UNDRIP, okay, we came out, we started showing the white paper back when we were decolonized North America here on Six Nations, and ended up in Ottawa, and then I made a video on it. That was our very first video on how to decolonize Canada with the Indigenous nations. And we've come full circle to this point now. 13 and a half years later, here we are from 2009.
People don't realize that this research is 13 and a half, like this is a 13 and a half year project. It's not just something that cropped up because of the mandates. It's not something that has just cropped up because of what's been going on the last 2.5 years. This has been going on quite a while, and it's been really interesting to get people's attention on it, because until people were in pain, they didn't pay attention. Until our governance didn't affect them personally, they didn't pay attention, and now they're paying attention. That's what it's taken, is for them to be affected personally.
Okay, so Liz had a question for us in regards to Bill C-15 and the UNDRIP. Do you have that question, Liz?
Yeah, I'm looking for it now. It's relating. Yeah, I was wrapped up with what Rhonda was saying. I'd like a little bit of clarification on the white paper as well.
Anybody can look that up. It was actually done by Trudeau in the early 80s, and it was done in conjunction. I think it started with the Constitution, and it moved into like the Meech Lake Accord and into the Charlottetown Accord. So it was all around that time frame in there. And it was basically to take away the treaties. It was to replace the treaties.
Yeah, and all of it stemmed from the rights of colonial countries, the rights to decolonize. Yeah, within our human rights and self-determination. And that's why the white paper came about, and it was written with Chrétien and Trudeau. And then the Indigenous nations came out with the red paper. And then all hell broke loose.
That's right. Never underestimate the government's ability to make something simple impossible.
Okay, so this question comes from one of our members. Her name is Nancy, And she says, now that Bill 15, C15, which is this would be at the federal level, has passed in 2020. How does Bill 15 and UNDRIP work with what and how what we're doing here? If in UNDRIP, Indigenous has no meaning, I'm under the impression that it could be detrimental to the land and landowners, and in her case, especially out west.
Right.
Yeah.
So we looked up in the Indigenous word today in Bill C15. So when you look at Bill C15, okay, we're going to have to really fine tooth comb it, Rhonda
Okay.
and Pierrette, so that we can look at see, because the government has a tendency of implementing international law, but only to what it accepts and leaves out what it does not want.
Yes,
exactly like our collective political and civil rights.
And exactly like the carbon tax and exactly like the other stuff. Like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So with UNDRIP, what happens is UNDRIP is created for, let's say, a country that has more Indigenous peoples than other Caucasian people or any other race. Now, some of them were allowed to take back their entire lands. Okay, because they were way more. They were like 70% as opposed to 30%. So they were able to take their lands. That caused some chaos for the others who had to leave. But by rights, this was only right to do so because they had been invaded and now they were given their lands back and their power. In our situation, it's different because we have 1.8 million people, a little bit more Indigenous peoples, and then we have 36 million Canadians. And this is why UNDRIP, what the government was trying to do is reach what they call the new comprehensive land claims. They brought that in later on so that they can finalize and bring UNDRIP on board. But what the Indigenous nations, many of them did not know, is that after so many years, they become Canadian citizens and lose all of those rights anyway. So we have to really, we see with what we're doing, the nations would have their rightful power with equal with Canadian citizens, and also have the power still regain that power on their lands, and work with we have to work together in a governing system that works for both and that everybody prospers. Otherwise, if we do not do this, both will lose everything. We will lose all of our rights to our natural resources and everything else. And that's why before September, where the government reopens Parliament, it's important that we pull this off, that we do this, and that it's recognized internationally as our finally initiating our full rights together as equal partners in this country, because we are equal partners in this country. No matter how many Indigenous peoples there are, that is still their rights. We have no right to deny them that just because many of them were murdered, attacked, abused, thrown into situations where there's alcohol and drugs and everything like that. Because if you look at our population, you really don't hear as much about it, because if you really look at the drug situation and murders and everything else, we have the highest quota of criminals. So you can't point the finger at Indigenous nations. The governments are responsible for everything that happens in this country to everybody, same as people that we have in our streets and our cities. The governments have made decision over time to really cripple the Canadian citizen, to really keep us under a thumb, to make us take jobs that people are not happy with, making the corporations, giving them more power and inserting them as a dictatorship over employees. And then so that we forget our own rights above the government. So this is what we're going to be implementing on July 30th, is that, hey, we're the boss. You work for us. We have the right to self-determine as many times as we want, as long as we can unite together and agree that this is what we want as equal partners in our Constitution.
I want to make it clear, though, this weekend, the Heritage Day weekend, July 30th to August 1st, is a celebration. It's not a protest. We're not protesting anything because we don't need to protest anything. All we're doing is asserting our rights. We are celebrating the fact that we're coming together under those rights. That's what we're celebrating.
Exactly. So this is what people need to understand on both sides. Okay, we lose everything if we don't make a move. We're making that move.
And the weekend is also going to be a lot about education. So education around the two-row wampum, education around what the silver chain covenant means, education around what it looks like going forward. What are we going to do? Because this is we're all going to have to work together. For the first time in our history, we are going to have to be responsible for our own democracy, which means we need to get involved. We need to get involved in what happens politically. We need to get involved in what's happening in our communities. We just need to get involved. We can't just vote somebody in and then say, oh, my job's done until the next election. We need to stay involved, and we need to teach our children to do this, that this is a part of our society, that we are educating ourselves and staying informed and involved in politics. And not everybody is going to do that, but we need a certain percentage. And in all societies, there's a certain percentage that stays that way. And we need to do that. We don't have that in Canada. So for a healthy society to exist in democracy, you need people to be informed and involved and educating other people. That's what you need. So that's what we're doing.
So Liz, you think that answers Nancy's question?
Yeah. And it would be easier to stay vigilant, right, Rhonda? I guess.
Very much so. And because we know if you go through history, we know that once the government takes something away, you never get it back. As much as they promise you're going to get it back, you never get it back. It's always, it becomes this carrot and stick game that they play. And, taxes. Why do we still have taxes? We weren't supposed to have taxes after a certain number of years. And I'm not talking provincial taxes, I'm talking federal taxes. So there's just all these things that the government, once they put it in place, it's a done deal. Once they take a right away, you never get it back. So we need to teach our children and we need to lay the foundation very strongly so that our children know what their rights are, and that they know not to give on any of them ever to any government. Because once you give, that's it. Once you start complying without really thinking about what's the reason for this compliance, why are they demanding compliance? No government should ever demand compliance from you. They shouldn't. They're to be compliant to you. It's just strange that how our society in Canada has sort of laid down and said, okay, whatever the government wants, we'll do.
Right.
They must know best. They must know best. Well, our government has never made a decision for us that's been in our best interest, or has never made a decision that has turned out to be in our best interest in the history of Canada.
Right. Now, I just want to make one more point before, because of Nancy's question. Okay, there's a lot of people are confused as what do you call First Nations, blah, 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 okay? Now, under the Indigenous Corporate Training, Inc., okay, an Indigenous website, it says Indigenous peoples, a collective noun for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, and growing in popularity in Canada. Indigenous or Aboriginal, okay, is the exact terminology. And Indigenous, in Bill C-15, Indigenous is used because of the international level, and it is bound by international law. That is the right terminology for people who were here prior to contact. Now, it is synonymous with Aboriginal. So when the government talks about Aboriginal peoples, they talk about all of them together, because First Nations is not Inuit or Métis. So if you call them First Nations, you're excluding the Inuit and Métis. And we can't be doing that. So that's why we refer to them as Indigenous peoples, and it includes everybody. Okay, it doesn't mean that, oh, I was born here and that's why I could call myself Indigenous. No, you know,
Yeah, we get
Indigenous
that.
is first contact.
Yeah, we get that question a lot too. Why aren't they just Canadian? If they've been born here after, like, why are they not just Canadian? Well, they're not. Some refer to themselves as Canadian, but many don't. They're Indigenous people. There's a difference.
I heard that they don't span just Canada, they span throughout all of North America.
North America, exactly. Yeah, they have rights
Yes.
across all of North. They have no border.
Okay.
No, and Canada would like them to forget about that. And for people not to know this, it's Turtle Island. They are North American Indigenous peoples.
Yeah.
Amerindians, if you want to call them that as well, across America. And the Indigenous peoples here should not have a border. Okay, they should not have to deal with border issues. When they cross here, especially Six Nations, when they cross at the border Niagara Falls, they have no problems entering the US. The US has recognized their full rights to move throughout the United States and Canada, although they will not allow them to really move forward fluidly through Mexico and the US.
Mhm.
Okay, but they are Indigenous to Canada, United States, and Mexico, and then all the way down as well to South America. So they all of the North and South America could include all of them, but for reality's sake, since first contact, it was actually mostly just North American. So really, technically, we could also include the Indigenous nations in the United States as having an investment in all of the North American lands, and especially in Canada.
So I've heard before, like people in say Ireland saying, well, we're Indigenous to Ireland, we can decolonize. That doesn't seem to be quite right for people like us. Then it would just be
Yes.
the Indians and
No,
maybe
no.
the Inuits that decolonize, or
Yeah, see, we've already self-determined because we are self-governing on one sense. So if you were in court and had to debate this, for us, we can self-determine as many times as we want, although we are already independent from the UK as a country, and our country is recognized as sovereign. But at the same time, that's only, through business-wise and negotiation-wise and treaty-wise. So when it comes to the people's Canadian citizens, we too need to be decolonized because our system of governance is still under, remember that number 4? Okay, we just traded one imperialism to another kind. And because of the system of governance, Canada will say, well, we're a modern democracy. Well, BS on that. You didn't go far enough, because you can no longer, because of 1960, you can no longer legally say that, we do this by habit. We've always done this. Well, no, the minute that the people were the ones in power, like in 1931 and then in 1932, 1960 just clinched it legally at the international level. So they would not be able to use that as an excuse. What we would say was, well, excuse me, but 1960 legally at the international level, without us already being independent, and you stole our rights, have the right to self-determine as many times as we want. We do have self-governance, but the self-governance was imposed by you, which is still under a colonial system.
Yeah.
The only way that a people can be free and a people can actually truly decolonize and self-determine is if it's the people that are in power above their governments.
If
anything less than that is a lie.
Yeah, the people need to have the final decision-making authority. Other countries have way more self-determination than we do in certain ways. Other countries have open referendums where the people call a referendum and the government, but again, in some of those countries, the government's not upheld to enforce what the outcome of the referendum. So they do all these little niggling across the board that, and in no country are the people above their government. Every constitution has was changed between the 70s and the mid 80s. Every constitution was changed, and yet the people were not put in their proper place.
Right. So in 1982, technically, legally, we could debate. Trudeau's own lawyer that worked on the Constitution said that, hey, we are still technically a colony up till 1982. So because Canada did not fulfill its duties to the Canadian people and the Indigenous nations and bring us together in our Constitution, we are still under the sovereignty, parliamentary sovereignty of the UK for correcting our Constitution. And the onus is on them to rectify that, not to even argue it. If we ask for it, they need to do it. That's the law. So how's that?
That is good.
I still haven't gone to take my shower or do what I needed to do, but I decided to stay here with you because it was important to explain decolonization properly. The French people were also colonized, and then it was also a colony, and the Indigenous nations were colonized by the French, same with the English. Therefore, the two peoples were either colonies and then ended up becoming the dictator. So a lot of people came here to Canada to escape dictatorship, to escape that imperialism, and then ended up becoming the colonizers themselves to the Indigenous peoples, and even themselves.
And ourselves, because look at what our governments are. Our government, like, again, it's been just a lot of blatant myth. So by voting in elections for a government where you have no legal recourse, you're actually tying your own hands at from your own doing. That's called an oxymoron. And the other biggest myth that we have is representative governance. That's the other biggest myth that we have.
Yeah. They represent whom, right?
Yeah, the politicians all know this. If they don't, they need to get out of politics. If they don't know our rights, they need to get out of politics. Judges that don't know our rights need to get out of judging. And this is where we need to clean everything up.
The time has come. There's so much corruption in our existing system of governance. There's so much corruption because there were never any checks and balances for it. There have been no checks and balances for our governance since 1867. So, Monique? Oh, we can't hear you. No, can't hear you yet. You need to unmute yourself. On Zoom, unmute yourself in Zoom.
It's unmuted.
There we go. There you go.
Okay, I didn't see it muted here, so I thought, what's going on? All right. So when we talk about how, yes, people think if I vote for this guy, it's going to be great. Now, I'm sure we all know someone that we've been fighting for our freedom for the last 2 years. And, we've got a few friends who are saying, okay, I'm going to go into politics, vote for me because I'm going to make it all change. So just to be clear, they are kidding themselves or naive about just how much power they're going to have to be elected and go out there and change everything.
That's exactly right, because it needs to change on the federal level first and then the provincial levels. And the federal level, if you look at history, the only two parties that have ever been in power historically through elections have been either the Liberals or the Conservatives. That's it. So if you don't have enough power to usurp, the NDP have been around forever, the Green Party's been around forever, and they have never ever gained enough traction to be able to unseat either the Liberals or the Conservatives as 1 and 2. So that's a huge issue. If it can't happen over a span of 150 years, how much longer do you think it's going to take to happen? Because, and again, without the people as the collective head of state, once that party's in power, it can be just as corrupt as the other parties. Like they all kind of work together. There's no, because of the players behind the political parties. It really is about corporations and the players behind the political parties that are running our country. It's not our are elected officials.
And
They truly are actors. They
Yeah.
truly are actors. The Elections Act, if you read the Elections Act, they are actors. And that's truly what they are. They are employees of the political party.
Yeah, and we've seen people who thought, okay, I'll join the PC party, and you've got 3 people fighting in there, and one person gets booted because, yes, this is a person who doesn't want to see things change, and oops, you made a mistake, you're out. The next person, well, you won, but this other person is going to get in. And there, I know there's some political stuff going on there, but it's like people think they're going to just make a difference, vote with someone different.
This is why we stay 100% nonpartisan, because
Yeah.
it does not, you can't win with, you just can't win with political parties. You can try and you can make a good effort to uncorrupt them, but it's going,
Mhm.
if you cannot match the money makers or the money behind the scenes, you have no chance politically.
Yeah, and even if you get in there, you have to do what the party tells you to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You are an employee of that political party.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can go and say, and when I get in, everyone's going to eat cornflakes. And you get in and they say, oh, sorry, I can't make you for cornflakes. It's going to have to be Rice Krispies because that's what they've been serving us for years. So yeah.
And they never have a referendum to ask us. In my lifetime, there's only been one federal referendum. In all of our lifetimes, there's been one federal referendum. We should be having referendums on every major issue that affects us all. And we don't.
Yeah.
Who should run these referendums? How would that be?
Well,
because usually the
again,
government does.
Right now, the government has total control over referendums, and not just the government, but every level of government. So the federal government, the Attorney General has the final say on whether or not a referendum is going to happen. Then you have federal or provincial the government, the provincial government has final say over whether or not a referendum is going to happen. And then municipal would be the city council or city or town council has final say over whether or not a referendum is going to happen. And it's pretty interesting how referendums have not been utilized the way they could be. We have a whole system of open governance, a whole website network of websites called the Open Government System. And it's been in place for about 10 years now. Not a lot of people know about it because we're not told about it. We're not taught about it. We're not told about it. And that system can be utilized to talk about bills, to do all of the other stuff, because it's all intertwined. It's federal, provincial, it's all there. It just needs to be used. And with our CRA website, there's, some of that can be used. Like there's just, when you talk about how to make referendums easy, there are so many ways to make them easy and secure, but people just don't want to talk about it because, it's going to be corrupt. It's going to be corrupt. Well, there's so much corruption right now that let's leave that aside and look at fixing something to be flexible and adaptable. Nothing that the government puts in place is flexible or adaptable. Their own payroll system, for 7 years, they haven't been able to pay their employees properly. 7 years. And Lord only knows when that's going to be fixed.
In today's technology, yeah.
In today's tech, yeah. Like it's crazy that it's taken them this long for payroll. What's really going on? It's a payroll system.
Yeah.
We've had payroll systems in Canada run on computers for decades without these kinds of issues that they're having. So what's really going on?
Mm-hmm.
They spent billions on this payroll system. So it makes no sense. None of it makes any sense. So, and it's these little things, like people talk about, well, who do I answer to once the people are the crown or whatever? Well, you still answer to the prime minister, but the difference is if you are a federal employee working in a department, is that if you have issues, chances are the system will become flexible enough that your issues are finally going to be heard and resolved versus hitting that political wall. So, you know, you take the corruption out of it. How much money is spent on lobbying? How much money is spent on our, you know, to lobby our governments into decisions that aren't in our best interest? That's pretty much all that happens inside of government now, is lobbying. It never used to. That lobbying really only started in the 60s and like in the 50s and 60s, and it started that uptick. And now a lot of federal government employees, you can't even go into your federal government MPs. You can't even go into the government MP office and talk to them about any solutions, because that's considered lobbying.
Don't you have to have a special permit to lobby?
You do. You do. But I'm talking as a constituent, talking to the person you voted in. You cannot go into their office and talk to them about solutions, because that is considered lobbying. You can bring your problems to them, but that's it. So we have a real broken system, and it's been broken for a long time, and it's been not broken for them, but it's been broken for us. And the reason it's been broken for us is because we've never really been a part of it. We've had one role, and that is to vote. That's it. We can vote or we can run in the elections. That's it. But if a political party doesn't want you to run, you're never going to get anywhere. And running as an independent means you're up against, you have a budget of, I think you have a cap on your budget of, I think, of $5,000 for all of your spending. Think about the millions that each political party spends on their campaigns.
Oh, you'll never be heard.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies, it is 9:29. We'd like to thank everybody for attending, but before we go, I'm going to do another screen share with you. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm on the right page here. Yes, I am. And to let you know how you can help. And it's by going back to our website. Screen share.
Oh, I can screen share mine, Nicole. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've got it here.
Okay.
Okay, so this is our website. I'm just going to move the ladies here. And there we go. Oops, not that. Now, okay, here we go. So when you come to our website, you'll see the home page. Okay. And I'm just going to go back here. So you can either donate through here, and in here you will receive a copy of our ebook in either English or French. And I see that we have a guest here tonight, and I'm hoping that she did get her book that I sent her. So hopefully here they'll be able to read about all of our event. But there's also here a chance for you to win a wampum belt with a donation. So what I've just done while Rhonda was and Liz were talking is I added the link to the tickets.
Oh, good.
So it'll go directly here to our event. And then you can read all about our event. Everything that you saw on the front page is here as well, so that you can see our business number and our licensing for the tickets. And also being a not-for-profit corporation, and listen, under charities, we are able to sell to have raffles for fundraising and stuff like that.
Please know that none of us receive any salary. That's very important. This is very key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're one of the few. Yeah, we're one of the few that everything that we do, our time is we are all volunteers. Everything that we get from donations, from support, from even from our memberships that help us to pay the bills every month. We have huge expenses, and now we're going to have even a bigger one with this event, and to try to help everybody get their freedom, because true freedom is only when we stand as the head of state with full veto power, which means final decision-making authority over our government. So until that happens, we will never be free. And it's time to be free before we lose everything and our rights to our natural resources. When we do this, we have the right to take back all of our natural resources, including the Indigenous nations who have been losing a lot because of the theft of our rights and their rights. So now we need to clean this up. So if you want to help us to get a chance to win, there'll be 2 draws. So you get 2 chances with the same donation. So if you donate $20, and I'll show you, just click on tickets here. This page will open up. You just insert here, let's say $20. And before it kept clicking off to USD funds, but now it should be all Canadian funds. So here you'll have this, and it says checkout. And I want to make sure that people understand how to do this, because you only have 30 minutes on this website. Okay. So if you're looking for your credit card or your bank card, whatever that you use online, if you go away, it'll say that it's no longer available. Just refresh the page and then redo it. We've had one gentleman who was having a hard time with that. So here they have my name already registered, email, and then you can put your home phone number or your cell phone and your age. Well, the reason why we put an age is because we want to make sure that the people are over 18, okay, to buy the tickets in regards to lotteries. So here, Eventbrite charges 50 cents. So the total bill comes to $20.50. So when you're going to here, okay, lower, you can either use a credit or debit card or PayPal, but you have to make sure that you click this here on, okay, and then place your order. And this is where it's going to go. Okay, it's having a hard time changing because I'm doing a screen share. Okay, so we're gonna never mind that. And just finish with that, stop share. So anyways, then you'll get an email. You'll be able to get an email with your number and everything else. And what we're going to do is everybody, with every $5, let's say $20, you get four tickets. So what we do is we take the number of your order confirmation and we place the last 5 numbers on a ticket that we have to cut up and put into our raffle. So you get 4 chances. If you've got $40, then that's 8 chances to win. Okay. And then everything gets put back into the bag, and then you get a second chance to win the second wampum belt. The first prize is the 2-row. Second prize is the silver covenant chain. And yeah, Bill, I'll fix your membership. We also had something happen with the memberships. When I went in to add more information for the $10 memberships, it went back to the memberships only lasting for 30 days instead of for the full 12 months. So I've refixed that. So we're going to have to work with the people to get all that settled. You're still members. Don't worry about it. We're going to get it all fixed up. And that's it for me. I want to thank everybody, but please know that we are being they really do not want this information out. We depend on you to help in every which way you can. Share. Let people know. Get as many people as you can out to Ottawa or organize within your communities. And if you want help to organize for your communities, please contact Richard at thepowershift.ca. That's Richard at thepowershift.ca, all one word, the Power Shift. Okay, so I will leave you with that. And like I said, we need all the help we can get, especially financially, because we're not getting any help at all. We're the most ignored group in Canada, I find, and especially when the government wants to make sure that nobody hears about us. Now it's up to you to make sure that everybody does hear about us, because we only have so many hours in a day. Okay, so thank you very much. Good ladies, any last words? No, nothing.
Oh, I have one last word. And that is, if you, across Canada, if you are part of a community newsletter that allows people in the community to put free ads in their community newsletter, please let us know. And what we will do is we will get you information to put in your community newsletter about the power shift.
Yes.
Okay.
Send an email to contacts@thepowershift.ca.
Yeah. So, but check with your community, like everybody has a community association, check with your community association if they allow you to have an ad in, like, for free in the community newsletter.
Right. So we are now, pretty soon you will see on our website, and a new website coming up called the Canadian Citizens Coalition. And you will see our logo there with other groups. We are finally going to be working to ensure that everybody knows their rights for these groups as well. And we're going to be following James also on his journey, James Top, for Canada Marches and the veterans and everybody else during our live streaming. So we'll be following him as well. So you'll be able to get the news with us on that day, and well, that evening, I should say, and it should be very interesting. But we need to go and get our rights. Otherwise, nothing else will happen. We need to stop everything that's tracked. We need to make sure our government no longer can make decisions until they come to us. By doing this on July 30th, it's the beginning, and they will actually be put on notice that yes, we are self-determinating. Yes, we are uniting with the Indigenous nations. And yes, the Indigenous nations need to become full partners with us in our governance and finally clean the mess that they've done for all these years.
And I want to stress one last time before we go, it's the people doing this. It's not necessarily the leaders doing this. Our leaders want the status quo to remain for some reason. So it is up to us, and we have that right, that collective civil and political right to do this.
Yes. So good night, everybody. Talk to you soon, and get ready for your tickets. Get everybody you know to buy tickets. Everything helps us, and we'll see you on the Hill, but you'll see us here way before that time. Just keep watching our website, watching our Facebook, because you will not know when we're going live streaming, because they are blocking us. Okay, so hopefully that will change, but go ahead. Were you gonna say something, Liz?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, so don't forget thepowershift.ca. Tell everybody and anybody you can. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.